forces. And so uh, I've got that 5F there in parenthesis, and that indicates that this is one of Porter's 5 forces. If the buyers are large and have a significant buying power, for example, someone like Walmart does a lot of business with a lot of small companies, but they call the tune on price, and you've got to be able to offer a product, a quality product at a low cost and a low price. And then another place where this works well to have a low cost, low price is where there are new people entering the market. And all three of these, low switching costs, buyers have a large significant bargaining power, and industry newcomers trying to buy market share are all part of the 5 forces. So mark that down because we will spend quite a bit of time looking at that concept. Switching costs are the cost of going from one vendor to another vendor. And I went out the other day and bought another case of copy paper for my home office here. And I just looked for the cheapest one. They had it at Office Depot and at Staples. I ended up buying it at Costco, and I think that that was the cheapest price that I could have gotten. But the paper's the same. So there's no switching cost involved. In another case, though, using again a paper example, if you ever get back on campus, you're going to find that they have an automatic dispenser in the restrooms that dispenses a one sheet of paper at a time for drying your hands. And I'll guarantee you, this is an automatic device. I'll guarantee you the supplier, which I believe is Georgia Pacific in this case, has put in a machine whose width for their hand towel is different from anybody else's, so that if somebody wants to go buy their product from, say, Kimberly Clark, the width of the rolls will not fit into that Georgia Pacific machine, so that there's more cost involved in switching because you have to switch the dispenser as well as the paper product. So now I want to have you talk about something that you probably know a little bit about, and this is something, of course, we're going to be uh, looking at with one of our case studies, and that's Southwest Airlines. Can you think of anything that they do that will allow them to have the low costs and low price? I presume all of you have flown on Southwest at some time, or at least are familiar with them.
Not with Southwest.
Don't they provide like I feel like they have a lot of flights. I've flown Southwest. I don't like Southwest. But they have a lot of options and they're very inexpensive. So they have the volume for their market, especially with regard to flying in peak seasons and in and out of really popular cities like LA, JFK, which is in New York Airport, Florida, and even BWI, which is in DC. So they always have flights, but their airline sucks, so they lose quality. But that's just my opinion. But
Oh,
that's
Bree, you stand alone in that opinion because they have the highest ratings of all the airlines.
I don't know. I mean, I've been flying alone since I was about 9 years old. I had to fly back and forth from here to New York several times a year, and I've flown about almost every plane conceivable, like really small planes, like the double engine planes, and just Southwest. I just never really. I could probably count on one hand how many good experiences I've had from them, and it's usually when I fly them, it's just because it's the cheapest ticket in and around that time of the year. So that's just me. I prefer like Virgin America, Delta, and American. I like American Airlines, but that's just me.
Okay, so you're a premium price buyer.
Yeah.
Premium price buyer. But one of the things that they do have that is a characteristic of theirs is lots of flights going lots of places.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason for that is they have small planes and they design
Right.
their route in a way that they can fly a plane load from point A to point B. Gerardo, what were you going to say?
Oh, I know that, like you said, their aircraft type played a big role in it because I think they have, like you said, smaller planes and different less type of planes, and they usually try to like their low cost fares usually go to like the smaller airports, and then they have like they offer like their purchasing categories. They have like one category that if you purchase, I believe, like business, and like the price drops on the actual fare, you get a refund for that difference. And then if you book a certain type of fare, I believe like the more economical one, and the price drops, then they give you a credit towards, or a voucher to use towards your next flight, which I know most companies don't do. You know, if the fare drops, you miss out. You're stuck where you bought it at.
Okay, well, that's good. You mentioned the small airports that they fly into. This is one of their characteristics. They actually use only one type of plane, and that's a
Oh,
737.
perfect.
And this is a characteristic of them.
Mhm.
And I might as well write these down as they come up here in the conversation, because in a couple of weeks, we've got a Southwest Airlines case study. And we're going to be looking at their distinguishing characteristics. This is one of the analyses that we would want to do as we look at different companies with different strategies. We got to find out what is their distinctives. What are the distinctives that make them successful?
What about the free baggage? Like
Yeah, what about that?
they have like 2 free bags that you can check in
Yeah.
as well. Because I know a lot of airlines they charge like
$50 for like the big
Yeah.
bag, and then 30 for like
Volaris.
30 for the small ones.
yeah, it's really expensive.
Okay, well, let's pursue that for just a second. Jorge, when you came in here, not only with a comment, but showing up in the class, I didn't pick you up in my first or second run through of the attendance. But let's go back to Courtney. You give your comment again, because it was always about the bags. Why do you think they do that? And I'll ask that of Jorge too. Why do you think they would give away the bags, and why don't other people do that?
I mean, I would say to attract more customers, but I don't know why other airlines wouldn't.
Okay, so it's obviously it's convenient for people. I suspect as people get older, or as they have a more heavy luggage, it may be an inconvenience to have to carry it, because you got to carry it on. You know, you got the free bag. You carry it out, at least out to the end of the gantry when you get on the plane, and they may take it and put it in the hold for you, where you can pick it up when the plane lands. But they give you the free bag, but they make you carry it. Now, why do you think they do it, and why do you think other people can't?
Cost savings. They just redirected it. Basically, they save a lot on their flights. Their flights are tiny, and then they don't really need. They don't need as probably don't spend nearly as much on gas, so they probably save there. And they're like, we won't charge you guys for bags, but everybody else is. The more bags you put on the flight, hence the bigger the planes, they have to spend more on gas. And then if the bags are overweight, they have to compensate in that way too. So most flights, I haven't gotten a free bag in like ages, but
Oh, but you always fly the Primo Airlines. You don't go with the
I know.
with the buses in the air.
I know. I have to. I mean, as long as I've personally been flying, I have to do this. I'd rather pay more for like a comfortable flight than pay less and get a free luggage, and then like my luggage doesn't even get on the plane. Like that's happened to me before too. So it's like, but that's just me.
Well, let me give you a hint as to what the real reason is. All the airlines have a thing called interline transfers. And so if you were to fly from New York to LA on Bree's favorite airline, American Airlines, and then you wanted to get up to San Francisco or Sacramento on the same flight, you get into LA, immediately transfer to some other flight, and that flight was, say, a Delta. What they do is they have an arrangement where the bags will be taken off the American Airlines flight and given to Delta, and they'll then have an accounting for it in their accounting office. And some money will go to American from Delta to pay for that transfer. Southwest has chosen not to associate in that interline transfer area because it costs money and they're not willing to give away the money. And also they tend to have point-to-point flights where people get on and fly from Ontario, for example, to Salt Lake, and then get off the plane and go about their business in Salt Lake. They don't do as much transfer from one flight to another, even in their own system. So yeah, there are some people that'll go from Ontario to Salt Lake and then catch the next flight to Kansas City. But by and large, it's just point to point. Now, by not having that fee with the other airline, they've got savings, and they can turn around and pass that on to their passengers. And you should be taking notes on this because this is a significant kind of a thing for them. So when they don't have don't incur that cost, they can pass this on with lower prices and give you the advantage of being able to carry your own bag on. Now, the negative is that you do have to carry it on. So you got to schlep it from one place to the other. And in the same example, if someone flew from New York to LA on an American flight, then grabbed a Southwest flight, they've got to go to the carousel out there in the lobby, pick up their bag off the carousel, probably go back through a checkpoint to make sure they didn't pick up any bombs or anything when they pick up the bag, and then get on the plane. So there's an inconvenience for the passenger. And what they've done is to turn it into an advantage by saying you get a free bag. And they have legitimate savings from doing that. And if American decides to do that, or Delta decides to do it, they're going to, if they decide to give away the bag for free, as does Southwest, all of a sudden they're incurring extra costs and no extra revenue to go with it. So this is a distinctive advantage that can be carried over a long period of time. And it's because of the nature of the way Southwest has set up their system. So I hope you've taken those ideas down, because they'll come back up in our further conversations down the road here. Okay. So let's go back and see. So that brings us to the end of the low cost, low price. But the other major way that you're likely to set up your strategy, and I hope each of you have selected a strategy that you want to try in these trials. The second one that is most likely is differentiation. And with differentiation, what you're attempting to do is create a tangible or intangible benefit for the customer so that he prefers your product. And you can create an intangible benefit through advertising. For example, this may or may not increase costs. Now, if I were to ask the question, what's the safest car on the road? What would you say?
Toyota Camry.
Tesla Model 3.
A Camry, and what was the second one?
A Tesla Model 3.
Oh, I didn't know. There you go, Tesla Model 3. There's one historically, though, that frequently comes up when you talk about the safest car on the road.
Is it Ford?
What was that?
Is it like a Ford? I don't want to say a Ford, but well,
Volvo?
Ford Focus had a high safety rating, but like a bunch of recalls. So
Yeah.
Volvo.
Huh?
Subaru?
What was that?
Is it a Volvo?
That's the one that I would think of. And for years, they advertised this as a buyer benefit, that they had the safest one on the road. Now, today I haven't seen any ads, and it looks like there's been enough decay here that you all don't recognize that as the first choice as the most, as the safest. But the driving community apparently accepts that as the safest car, even though they're no longer advertising it. So right now they're getting, to the extent they get the advantage, and what you're proving to me with your selection of other cars is that that advantage will gradually fade if they don't keep on advertising it. They're getting the benefit of it without any increase in cost. And it is a nice thing to be driving in a safe car. I think Subaru is another one that's kind of promoting that. Having a differentiation may or may not allow you to increase price. It may just be the cost of staying in the game. But it does get more sales from the perspective that people accept that you have a better product because of the differentiation feature you have. So how does this work? Well, differentiated products create advantage, competitive advantage, by in order to command a premium price or increase unit sales or build brand loyalty. So it could be any one of those three, or any combination of those three. And what you try and do is increase value that's not easily matched or easily copied. Now, one of the ways that a large company can create value that smaller companies can't copy is because of the high volume they have. They can buy down their costs to a lower level and could therefore put more money into differentiating their product, whereas a small company doesn't have the advantage of buying down their costs and therefore doesn't have the money to spend on creating extra value. A lot of times it takes time to build these kind of advantages, and that means it's not easily matched. So we'll see if we can look at that a little bit. We always want to spend less on differentiating the product than if you're going to try and increase, if you are going to do a differentiation, you will be probably will be spending money. And if that's the case, you got to make sure you get a price premium from doing that. Now, here's some themes that you may be familiar with for a company differentiating itself from others. One of them is a wide selection of one-stop shopping. Home Depot today is probably 30, 35 years old. And it was two guys that started it. I think the guy's name is Al Langone and Bernie Marcus. And these guys are now billionaires. They're coming up with the idea of taking a bunch of lumber yards and hardware stores and putting them all under one roof. So you could go there and easily meet any of your home improvement needs all with one stop. Superior service. They don't use this ad now, but several years ago, when FedEx was just really ramping up their capability, they had an advertisement that said, when you absolutely, positively need to have it overnight. And that was how they built their company. Nordstrom has had a reputation for giving superior service all the time, and therefore have built their market, which is suffering a little bit right now because people are more and more going to internet buying as opposed to going in the store. But for those who do go in the store, this is the preferred place to go because they have such high quality and high service components. Take anything back anytime and they'll give you a full refund. One of the stories they tell about is a store where people brought back in a set of tires for a refund, and they refunded money to them. This is now Nordstrom's refunded money, although they don't sell tires, because they believe it's cheaper to keep a customer than to get a new customer. So they really bend over backwards to give that kind of service. Another theme can be prestige, and people like Rolex and Rolls-Royce and Prada have built a reputation over decades, and it's extremely difficult for anyone else to get into that market. Now, you mentioned, one of you mentioned Tesla, and Tesla has certainly been able to buy their way into a market niche. They won't compete directly with Rolls-Royce, but driving a Tesla is driving a prestige automobile. Quality manufacture. Honda and Toyota both have superior reputations for quality in their products. I had a really old Honda. I can't even remember what model it was, but I had about 450,000 miles on it. I let my grandson drive it, and he immediately blew up the engine. But up until that point, I could really demonstrate that and demonstrate the quality in the car. And in fact, one time when I did an oil change, the fellow who was working on the oil change said, you ought to sell this car back to Honda. Let them cut up the engine and see what they did right, because this thing looks like it's new. Well, it was until he drove the car, and then it turned out to be worth zero. Top of the line image, and certainly I suspect you know who Ralph Lauren is, or who Coco Chanel is, but certainly everybody in the audience here knows who Starbucks is. And they have created a top of the line image for a very mundane product. And as I will have maintained in an earlier lecture, and will maintain as we go farther along with this, Starbucks isn't selling coffee, they're selling experience. So each of these takes a long time to develop. It took a while for a Home Depot, for example, to be recognized as the place for one-stop shopping. And all of the others you can see are long-term things to develop the reputation that you have. You can use each one of these, because I got that red star. That isn't my blessing on using this in the game, but the red star indicates this is something that you can employ to develop a differentiated product. So let's talk about Starbucks. Do you know how long it took me to find that picture on the bottom left? The old style coffee shop was probably a mobile gas station where you have a Bun-O-Matic there that you can pour out that coffee that gets burned up as the day proceeds. But that was the way coffee was sold. Today, this is what a coffee shop looks like. And I'd like to ask you again, what impressions do you have about the differentiated characteristics of a Starbucks?
I'd say
Go ahead.
Caesar?
I'd say any Starbucks you go in the world, they'll have kind of like the same drink, and it'll taste almost exactly the same.
Okay, so you know, it's dependable. And is it good? Well, that may be a different story, but it certainly is dependable. That's true of a McDonald's too. When I say, is it really all that good? It is dependable. Nago, what were you going to say?
The question was, what differentiates them?
Yeah. What is your impression of the difference between a Starbucks versus any other?
Starbucks always has like lounging areas and and then free Wi-Fi, so that is different from other coffee shops.
And does it mean, do you think that causes people to prefer going there?
Yes, because it drives people to want to go and let's just say do their business inside of a Starbucks, which in essence will make them more money because they spend more time there.
Yeah, so people can hang out there.
Mhm.
Professor,
You know
they
the-
added
Go ahead, Gerardo.
they also did I'm not a Starbucks fan either, but didn't they add like their Starbucks Reserve too? And that like how he said it was more of a lounge feel than the like coffee bar type of thing.
I was just gonna say, I was an add-on to that. Yeah, the reserve. I went to the reserve. It's in Palm Springs, and they literally managed to differentiate within their own company, and I
Mhm.
didn't even think that they could do that. Like it's for one, the baristas are dressed different, so they wear black aprons. It's a completely
Mhm.
different feel. The way the store is made is completely. It doesn't look like any regular Starbucks. It looks like a really high-end Starbucks, and their coffee. I mean, I love Starbucks, but it almost tastes better. Like I don't know if it's the visual appeal that like, oh, my coffee's been made perfectly. I don't know, but they managed to like nail it, and it's crazy that they even it's the experience that of Starbucks. It's really cool. It's impressive to me.
In case you didn't know it, they do serve Starbucks on Southwest.
I didn't know that.
So, well, they also serve it on all the major airlines as well. And that, that was something that always used to bother me because I knew that Starbucks was a differentiated product. And do they cheapen the product when they sell it on the airlines like that? Because, the water's so bad on the airlines that they don't let you drink it out of the containers that they have in there because they're not clean enough, and therefore they were getting some germs in the water, and so they provide now bottled water instead, so it's clean. So that was a surprise to me when they began doing it, but they've been very successful with it. They also sell things like churches or any kind of a gathering place where you might give away the coffee for free. Like at church, for example, they probably will do that. And that to me, not that I think a church cheapens the brand, but it's different from the kind of experience you have at a coffee bar or a coffee store.
The drive-through also helps too, because having to park and then go into a coffee shop can be kind of inconvenience if you're like in a hurry. It's in the morning, so if you're in the drive-through, that helps too. And also the mobile ordering too is very efficient, and you collect stars too. So I like that also.
Do you collect the stars?
Yeah.
I live up here in the Highlands, and so there's only one store that sells Starbucks.
Oh, really?
It's a grocery store. It's called Jensen's, and they'll let you accumulate stars, but you can't redeem them there, and they don't identify what they're selling. So I've had a little bit of trouble since I don't go down the hill that much anymore. I used to go down 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And so I'd gotten up to 4,000 or 5,000 stars, and I couldn't even spend them.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the stars. There's a local coffee shop like just like 2 minutes away from my apartment, and they have like a punch card, but I'm like, I'm gonna lose the punch card. So I think it's smart that they have an app that it like saves it for you.
Well, Taylor, I have actually lost stars because they expired on me.
What? I didn't know they
Very,
expired.
very frustrating, very
Oh.
frustrating experience. But you point out something that was a significant decision that Starbucks had to make. Did they want to put in drive-through? Because part of the shtick of Starbucks is the interplay between the customer and the barista. And if you go in regularly to a Starbucks, you may find they got your drink all ready for you when you walk through the door because they recognize you.
And I love that. I love that. Yeah.
So that's a different kind of a customer than the one that goes through the drive-through, because that's a grab and go. And so it was a real dilemma how to figure that out. That'd be something to contemplate in a strategic way of thinking. Can you do both? Or does the one damage the image of the other? The drive-through guy, is he going to damage image of the people that go in the store, and the people in the store, are they a different kind of a person because they like to have that banter with the barista?
Professor?
Yeah,
Well, the drive-through, they have a camera and they do recognize your face. Like, there's some Starbucks that recognize me and they have my order ready.
that's great. You know, that really is that's high tech selling, and these are all distinguishing characteristics that will give you some longevity with your strategy. Now, as far as having a camera, I think I was not aware of that, but that's a great idea. But that's something other people can do. Is they can do that as well. Put that in, and that will nullify some of the advantage. But that's what we always are looking at: is do we have a strategic advantage that will work over a long term, or can people copy what we're doing? But I have a suspicion, Jorge, that not only people could copy it, but I doubt if many would, because they don't have that. They have not sought to have that personal relationship with their customers for something as simple as a cup of coffee. Now, because this is long before any of you were born, it's at Disneyland, and to tell you how far back this was, Walt Disney died in 1966, but he always said when he was alive, I don't care what coffee costs anyplace else, but at Disneyland it'll always cost a dime. And I don't think it costs that anymore. It's probably about $4 or $5 for a cup of coffee there. So, okay, so let's see if we can grab a couple other things here and continue on with this. Okay, this is one last thing that applies to every product that you sell. That perception is reality. Buyers don't pay for value that they don't perceive. Got two, you can't do anything about that in the game, but I did put 2 stars beside it, 2 red stars, and also the yellow star up in the corner. So a price premium differentiation reflects the value that's actually delivered to the buyer, and at the same time, the value that's perceived by the buyer. And if they don't perceive it, they don't buy it. So here's a specific example, and you know this linkage is beginning to be broken down. Actual and perceived value can differ when buyers are unable to assess the experience with a product, like doing a test drive on an auto. Well, today you've got people like Vroom and Carvana and other companies that are pre-buying for you and presumably putting you in a position where you never have to touch the car or get into the car or even get close to the car prior to the time that you take ownership. But historically, one of the big advantages of the test drive was it allowed you to get in that car, feel its power, be immersed in the aroma that comes with the new car leather. And that's something that's very important for people to make the buying decision. Taking that same thing just one step further, this is a problem in internet sales, because you got to be careful that you create perceived value, and at the same time, you know that the buyer can't experience the actual product. Now, several years ago, Best Buy was getting damaged because customers were doing what they called showrooming. They'd go see things that they wanted to buy on the internet, but since they couldn't test drive it on the internet, what they do is they'd go to Best Buy, try out the product in Best Buy, uh, and then go home and buy it on the internet because it would be cheaper. So Best Buy, which was always ranked as one of the very best companies in the country, had to come up with some kind of a way because they were going to end up being bankrupted with people coming in and not buying, but just looking at their products. And so what they did is they came up with the idea of selling the product. If you brought in an advertisement that had a legitimate price on it, they would price match. And you got the advantage that you could take the product home and use it the same day. You didn't have to wait even for 24 hours for Amazon to deliver it, for example. And the other thing that they did is they set it up so when you buy something that requires some kind of service component, they'll do the installation for you. So they'll hook up your printer to your computer and you're all set when you get home, and not have to fiddle around with using some of the technology to get everything to work correctly. So those are the ways that they've tried to get a low cost addition to the value that they're providing to their customer, and it's very important. So the customer's perception is their reality, and you can't convince somebody that they're wrong in what they think. If their perception is that their position about their position is, that is reality, and you have to accept that. So just remember here, as we're talking about all these things, our objective is to be different, and those would be the two places you could do that. Now I've got another presentation, which obviously we're not going to be able to look at today because we're running out of time. And I'll put this out as a bonus on under PowerPoint decks. And what it is it goes through and looks at the reports from the BSG game and gives you a chance to take a look at them and see if you can figure out what the decisions were that were made to get the results that you see there. So there's one thing else I may want to do here. No, I'm not going to be able to do it. Yes, I can do it. This was your results for the first go round. And I've got 5 minutes to show you things that, or for you to ask questions about things about that first round. How'd you all feel about the decisions that you made?
I don't know about confident. I just kind of wanted to see how the game was going to respond in the first trial. So I didn't, my group and myself, we didn't really choose any heavy tactics as far as that first trial round. As
Okay.
with the, outside of the just seeing how it responds, because it's supposed to mimic it really well, but we don't know. We've never tried it, so.
Okay, I think there were some people that I may have sent an email to because there was no involvement or just so minimal involvement in the decision making that you're going to end up getting a low grade if the level of involvement is not improved substantially. This is your chance to do the practice. So what I've got up here is the comparative competitive efforts report. I just have one location, but I can very easily go to the others. And you can see what each of those areas, how they came out. Let's go down here to Latin America. Latin America is always very peculiar. And you notice here all these yellow marks. What does that tell you?
Losses.
Huh?
Those are loss.
Well, yeah, it says gain or loss, but how does this is not losses on your P&L, but what happened in this Latin American market?
were less pairs sold or made?
Each company sold less than they might have sold, because if you look at the line right above the gained, lost due to stockouts, the next line right above that says pairs demanded. And the pairs demanded means that your marketing mix caused people to want to buy, in the case of Team A, for example, 1,450,000 pairs. And all you could offer them was 1,218,000 pairs, and the rest of it was stocked out. So that meant either customers bought some other brand or they walked out without getting any shoes. And if you look here in Latin America, for some reason, and I don't know what the reason is, you stocked out on nearly everything. There was a lot more demand there than you were able to supply. How would you respond to that? If you're in this decision too, how will you respond to that?
Add more capacity.
You won't be able to, yeah, that's exactly what you want to do. You won't be able to, though, in a single decision. What can you do in making the decision this weekend?
Add a production facility?
What's that?
Can you add production facilities? Or one?
You still won't be able to do anything dramatic. You're going to have to do it with your marketing mix.
What's your marketing mix?
What is the marketing mix? It's price, promotion, which includes advertising and salesmanship, distribution point, which is place, and a product, how you would change the product one way or another. Those are the four general areas that you work within.
So would you raise price or selling point?
That would be, yeah, that would be a way you could go.
Right.
If you want it. In fact, look at Team D. They had a high price. They didn't sell very much, but they picked up 463,000 pairs in the gain or loss column from the other guys who were so much lower in price that they sold out.
Actually, I saw that yesterday when I was playing with price. It was throwing me off because as I would increase price, it actually kept, it was putting me into positive. So it threw me off at first.
Yeah, well, that's what you of course, you'd like to, if you got to be one place together, you'd rather be in the positive.
Yes.
So that would be one of the things you could do. Another possibility would be to change the amount of retailer support and not give as much to reduce, you're actually trying to reduce sales in that case, or reduce the advertising. And typically what we want to do is keep increasing brand advertising and keep increasing retailer support. So that's one of the fixes that you can put in there. The other fix is, and then I'm going to let y'all go, is Team A, B, C, I think it's G, H, and I, all offered product in the private label segment. And they ended up selling product, typically, if you look across the line there, for $37 a pair, when they could have gotten $53 a pair. And they ended up having customers walk out without shoes. They could have gotten an extra $20 a pair. So what's very important that you make sure that when you do dip into the private label market, you do it with excess capacity and not take away from your base product offering. And just remember that when the system allocates your product, you're making the product, you can't, there's limits on what you can control. But as you've made the product, how it gets distributed is the internet sales get covered first. The private label section gets covered second. Then whatever's left over goes to the wholesale market. And as I told you, the wholesale market is the most important thing because it's the biggest part of your business.